Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll Masechta Zevachim, daf Ayin Ches. We are going to begin on Ayin Zayin Mid Beis by the last Mishnah on the daf, 4 lines on the bottom. Dam Shnisar B'Mayim. So let's say a person has blood, which was supposed to be for Zrika, and it gets mixed up with water. So it depends. And Im Yesh Bo Mars Dam Kosher, provided that it still has the appearance of blood, even though there's also water in it. We're not concerned that it's diluted. Rather, we say that it's kosher, you could still use it for Zerika. Then the Mishnah says, let's say Nis'ar B'Yayin. Let's say you have blood that's not mixed up with water, but with wine. So Royin, again, we do another assessment. Royin Oisuki'uhu Mayim. We envision it as though it is water. What does that mean? So that sounds like it's not a good thing. So Rashi says over here, Shu Edaim ve'enu mara nikerboy. So it's basically saying that we consider it as if its color is similar to water, which is colorless. So that's what it's saying. Even though it's true, it's mixed up with wine, we envision as though there's no wine, and it's just like water. And therefore, as we said, as long as it has the appearance of blood, then you can sprinkle it. Okay, and then the Mishnah continues, Nis'ar B'Dam, so Behemo B'Dam Hachaya. So what ended up happening? In this case, you have Dam, and it's mixed up with other Dam. Now, it's either, when we say Dam Behema, Rashi says Shalchulin. So it's not that you have two carbonates mixed together. We talked about that. But here, one is Kodshim and one is Chulin. So what do? You can't do Zrika with Chulin blood. Obedam Achaya, which again, Achaya is, of course, also something which is not Makriv. We don't do Zrika. So Roino Sekihu Mayim. As you said, we envision it as though it is water. So the other blood is just like water. In other words, it's not a problem. All right, so that's the idea. So as long as the other blood, it's, you can still see blood. Obviously, it's blood and blood. But we consider the other one as though it is just like water, which means it's bottle. Says Rashi, and we make an evaluation. If it would be that this is water, was there enough blood from the carbon to counter it would still look like blood? Even though, let's say, there's a lot of chulin blood there, we don't care that there's a lot of chulin blood. We consider the blood as though it's water, and therefore now blood is much stronger than water, and therefore maybe it's still good. Okay. So again, Roinos Ki'ilu hu Mayim. Okay. Let's continue on the next Amud, even though there's a Rashi that says Shaykh for the next Amud. Rabbi Huda Omer Ein Dam Mevatel Dam. And we've had this many times, this expression. Rabbi Huda holds one blood cannot be Mevatel another blood. So look at Rashi on the previous Amud. Demin B'minoi. Since we're talking about blood and blood, which is min b'mino, it's basically the same thing. Lo batal, it cannot be mavatal. They feel tipo l'toich kli gadol kashul zrika. He says even if you have a drop that goes into a kli gadol, which is kosher for zrika, it doesn't matter. One dam cannot be mavatal the other. Okay. So again, this is min b'mino is lo batal. So therefore, because of that, if it's not bottle, so it's a problem. You can't use it. Nis'arev b'dam psulin yishafech l'ama. Let's say it got mixed up with dam, which was puzzle, as Rashi says. For example, as we saw in yesterday's daf, a roiva v'nirva, that is not fit for the mizbeach, or it was shechted chutz l'zmano chutz l'mkaimai. So then you take it and you pour it onto the amma, not to the side, but rather onto the amma. Which is where you dump it. But feel kosher harbi. We don't care. Even if a lot of the blood is from a kosher blood, the Chen says Rashi Badam Hatamsis. that comes from the shchita, yishafech it's spilled. V'alvi shadam a nefesh rabba olav, even though the dam nefesh is more. Mishim gezerah, we say, as the Gemara is going to explain, it's outside gezerah. So if you have dam psulin mixed in, then we just spill the whole thing. But dam atamsis, when we're dealing with dam atamsis, which again is at the time of the shchita, so yishafech l'ama, that also is spilt and poured into the amma. Rabbi Lezer Machshir, Rabbi Lezer says, and we're going to explain what exactly that means, what reason. Im lo nimlach v'naisin kasher. Says if you didn't consult anyone and you did it, then it's kosher. So that's Rashi's. That's even according to the Tanakama, that the afilu l'chatchila ilam mishum gezerah hayamachsher. If it wasn't for a gezerah, which we'll see what that is, it would be okay. Okay, now let's see the Gemara. Rav Chiba Rabba Rav Yochanan. Lo shanu. The only time lo shanu what? Says Rashi. The im yesh lo maris dam kosher. We said that just as long as it looks like blood, then it's fine. Now, when do we say that? Now, the ruba mayim. Let's say there's a lot of water. Shenafel mayim l'toich dam. Lo shanu el shenafel mayim l'toich dam. So what happened was you already had blood here, and then water spilled into it. So you already had the strength of the blood, and then water was pouring into it. So in that situation, we're going to be lenient, and we'll say that as long as it still has the maris dam, it's kosher. Avol nafel dam l'teich mayim. It was the other way around. Unless there was a cup of water and you spilled blood into it, rishon batal. So we say rishon batal. And therefore, it's batal even if it looks like. So what does it mean? It's batal means even if it looks like blood, it's still puzzle, because every drop that you put in of blood into this thing of water, it becomes batal. And therefore, the only time we're lenient is if the water goes into the blood, but not if the blood goes into the water. Amra papa Indian kisoi. When it comes to kisui hadam, which is a mitzvah, of course, covering the blood, einokin. There we don't say this rule. If in dichui b'mitzvahs, which means that you could still cover it. The fact that you had this mixture and it's a dichui doesn't matter. You can still do the mitzvah. Says Rashi, shafal pisha nidcha tipuri shayna shenafal teichamayim v'lohoya maresa nicker. It doesn't look like blood anymore, because let's say the blood fell into the water. If you'll hachi ki hader nafel tipashnia, when now you have a second drop of blood that falls in, chayzeres rishayna v'ni'ara, it awakens it with starf ima to combine. And therefore, if there's enough, and it looks like dam, so Rashi says it's chayzev v'nira. Even though it's a nincha, we say it's chayzev v'nira in kisui. We do not say that. We only say that yesh dichoy dafka when it comes to a davar kedusha, but not when it comes to a mitzvah. So you can still do the mitzvah. Okay, let's look at question 12. Dam kodshim shinisare b'mayim mahadin. So this is what he said. If the water fell into the blood, so as long as it has the appearance of blood, it's kosher. But if the other way around, the blood fell into the water, then rishon batal, and therefore we say that even if it looks like blood, it's still not going to be good. Okay. Maybe the same as TA28. Let's see TA28. Dam shazar b'mayim yishba maris dam. Ma dino inin zriko inin kisoy umadua. Okay. So Indian zrika im nafel mayim l'teich dam kosher. However, dam l'teich mayim is puzzle. The kama batal v'havili dichui. However, by kisui oilam kosher in dichui etzom mitzvahs. Okay, that's good. Okay, let's keep on moving. All right. So the 2 dots. So Amar Shlakish hapigol v'anoisev atame, which we usually couple these things together. When it comes to pigol, which is again an improper machshava, and noiser leaving over foods, which was supposed to be burnt. But tame, and regarding the dinim of a person who is tame, Shibolin zebazeh, that all of these different problems got mixed into one another, as Rashi says, kazais mezeh, kazais mezeh. There's a kazais here and over there. V'nosel toich piv, and you put it into your mouth. Okay, so v'ochlon potter. You're going to be potter from malchus, and even if you were given hasra, why? Because it's impossible to say that it's impossible that we do not say one min was greater than the other, and therefore it should be batal. We do not say that. So because since you ate it, and you ate a small amount here and a small amount there, so we're not going to say that you're going to be chayiv for having consumed an entire thing. And Rashi says, the fact that even you were given hasra, it doesn't matter, because it's considered hasra safek. Because it wasn't guaranteed to be. So Shema Mina Tlas, we can actually see from this little statement 3 important lessons. First of all, Shema Mina Isurim Mavatlan Zed Zed, that the fact you have these 3 things which are aser, right? These are problems, pigel, nicer, and tameh. There can be mavatal one another. Okay, so that's one chiddush, and the fact that it's mavatal one another actually works in your favor to not get malchus. That's one. Second, even though that it may be, first let's look at Rashi. We know that heter is mavatal iser. We don't say that. Okay. The second thing is it must be the din of noisin tam, that if something is like tam ki'ikr, if something has a taste, it's ki'u like the same thing, it must be lav deraisa. Why? Says because if it was deraisa, you would get malchus. Says Rashi, di deraisa nihinami derabba min al chaveroi. Then okay, fine, there's one more than the other, but mikol makam ta'ami yoiv. It can be given to be tasted. Vikatama deshir shalim. It's possible that the taste will indicate a shir shalim, and therefore you should get malchus. Shema mina hasra savigo shema asra, which you said before. So, what this is telling you is it became batal baroiv, so you can't give malchus, as we don't know for what iser he would get malchus. Okay, so that's the idea. It's like that's why the hasra savig. Okay, we wouldn't know the reason, like how it would work. Okay, for tam ki'ikr is not deraisa. We don't go after its taste. That's only durabanan. As for the case of min sheinu minoi, that's only durabanan, but deraisa not. And that's how we see this, because you don't get malchus. Okay, good. So let's continue. So the Gemara is not sure if these 3 are accurate. Must have Rava also isa min achitin. If a person has dough from wheat, or mina oiris, as well as from rice. So now these are 2 different things, right? There's 2 different foods over here, chitin and oiris. So im yesh ba tam dagan, as long as it tastes like wheat, chayevas b'chalav yafalad ruah oiris. So we see that now oiris, except for the shit of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, but we basically don't hold that oiris you can be yotzei chavasam b'pasach. But we see over here it does work. Now, why is that work? So Rashi says that you can be yotzei yechiyav of kum achol matzah, right? V'inois in tam b'roi v'lav deraisa. If it's true that the taste is not in deraisa, how could you taka be yotzei by doing a mitzvah deraisa? Dein yotzin el b'matzah she mecheshes aminin. We know that it has to be from the 5 grains of wheat, barley, oats, rye, and spelt. Dechsev lo yisoichel al chametz shel shamim tochel al matzos. Devarim haboin lo dechimotz ato yotzei behen yidei chavasa matzah. Yotzei elu shein boin lo dechimotz el yidei sirchain. So basically, oiris, according to the shita, you would not be able to fulfill the mitzvah. So why is it taka that you are? So because of tam kikar deraisa, right? It must be. So it's actually kasha. So when it's just midurabanan, no, it's really midurabanan. So yachi ema seifa adam yotzei b'nei chavasa b'pesach. Now, how do we understand that? if we're talking about min sheinu mina, there's two different foods. One's chitin, one's iris, and we still say tam ki ikr. It is a din deraisa, right? The fact that you can be yitzirei chavasai. So it means midrabanan. How can you say that? Ayin chesem beis. Ella min sheinu minoi betaima. When it comes to min b'minoi, ella min sheinu minoi, when it's not the same thing, betaima, it's totally on the taste, which means you could get malchus on the taste, says Rashi. Ella min sheinu minoi shatam nikerba, if you can taste the difference, which you can only do if it's min sheinu mino, it's min b'minoi, they both taste the same. But min sheinu minoi, that's shaykh batam, but taima mechayev, and therefore you can be chayev if it does taste like one of the things. V'lokim in a Torah, and the taka would be an issa deraisa as well. Min b'minoi is baruba. However, when it comes to min b'minoi, which obviously there's no din of taima because it tastes the same because it's min b'minoi, it's the same species. So in that situation, you will say it's only when there's a roiv would you be chayev. So we say basically what we're saying is there's no malchus if has some taste by min b'minoi, but min she'eno minoi taka you do get malchus. That's the difference. Let's look at question 13. I think. Omer Shlakish, Apigam Nois Vatami, Shabon Zebazeh, the Ochlan Potter. Mehen Hatchlos, what are the three of the Shema Minah? The Ezu Mehen Nidche Maskan. Which one do we actually say is not true? So we said Yisur and Mavatal Zedzeh, because there are three different Yisur and they're Mavatal each other. We also said Nois and Tam B'Raiv is Lav Derais. And third, Hasras Savik is Lo Shema Asra. Maskanu, we say that when it comes to min b'minoi, when it's the same thing, lo shma mino in nois and tam b'roiv. We don't say that in nois and tam b'roiv. So we make a distinction again by min sheino minoi. Taka is b'taima, and you can get malchus over there. Okay, fine. So then the Gemara says v'nishar min b'minoi. So why don't we consider this is min b'minoi? So why don't we consider kamin b'sheinu minoi? Why don't we could maybe like almost pretend even though it's min b'minoi, let's pretend it's min she'enu minoi. What does that mean? Tenan this arbiyayin, because what's our Mishnah? Our Mishnah said that if you have wine, the blood is mixed up with wine. This is min she'enu minoi. We consider it as though it's water. We consider the wine like it's water, right? And therefore, what do we see? We can taka make something which is really min she'enu mino as though it's minoi. Look at Rashi. My lav roinois yain kilu mayimu. The maradam, if the appearance of blood hayin nikr behen kosher. What do we see from our Mishnah? Says Rashi, Afal gav the min b'minohu le'inyan bitula dechazusa, even though it's min b'minoi regarding the being mevatel by its sight, lo amrinan levatel b'roiv el misharin le'kimin b'shinu minoi. We value this as though it's min she'enu minoi, and we go basar taima, right? So it's Ryan. So it says lo Ryan oisaladam kilu humayim. We imagine the blood is like water, so Yehachi batul meboile should say it's nullified, right? What does that mean? So furthermore, Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer Roino Isakil Hu Yain Edaim, we can say like it's red wine. So im dia, if let's say it's diminished, Marehu its vision, then kosher, Yuma apostle. So tonight, the truth is this whole matter is a machlokas among Tanoim. And we can see this, the Sanya. Deli sheish boy yain lavan ochal. Let's say you have this pail, which is problematic pail, and it has in it white wine. So it's the same color as the water, because it's white. Ochalav, again, this is also has the same appearance. Vit bilu, and it got immersed. So you immerse the pot with this stuff. Now this is a case of min b'minoi, because it all looks the same. So holchanacher haroiv. So we see that even when it comes to min b'mino, we go after rov, which is what we said before. Rabbi Yehuda and Roino Isakihu yain edaim. We consider the min b'minoi as though the wine is actually not white wine, but as though it's red wine. We make it into min she'eno minoi. Imdiya marehu kasher v'ima apostle. So again, we see that this is the din, that it's possible that we could, that we could make something which is a min b'mino into like a min she'eno minoi. Or minhu. Delishahu moli roikin. Let's say you have this pail that's filled with spittle. It's bilu, and you immerse it ki'ilu tavel. We say it's ki'ilu like you did nothing. Why? It says Rashi shaharoik avhu, because it's very thick. The chaytzetz mipnei amayim in bottle mayim, because of its thickness that's going to hit with the saliva, maybe with phlegm. So because of that, it's not going to be able to be immersed properly, and therefore the tefillah doesn't work. Meriglayim, let's say if we're dealing with urine, so royin oiso ki'il hein mayim. We consider this we consider this as though it is actually like mayim, and therefore the deli is fine. Mole mechatas, let's say it's filled with mechatas, so ad shir b'hamayim al mechatas. Okay, so man shaman le de isle royin. Who's the one that says this chumrah of royin? Rabbi Yehuda begatani desagli baruba. So we see that by mara, if its appearance is not required. So Rabbi lo kasha. It's not a question as we continue to Ayin Testament Aleph. Hadidei hadarabi. So one is Rabbi Yehuda, one's Rabbi Yehuda's Rabbi. The sign Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishim Rabbi Gamliel. Ein dam avatal dam. He says one blood is not mavatal the other. In roik mavatal roik. The ein meraglayim mavatal meraglayim. Okay, so talking Rashi. Hadit nan le'el re'oyin oiso kilu yain edaim. We take the white wine and imagine like red wine. That's actually his Rebbe, the machmir bebittel, and he's strict. Ki heichi the machmir b'min b'minoi, just like we're strict by min b'mino, yemer little bottle klal. He says it's not bottle. Min she'enu minoi nami the isle the bottle. It could be mabatel min she'enu mino. The kaimele kolzman shemara hamuit nikar b'roivel bottle. Machmir nami v'omer deheichen d'mareihen shavin, when they look the same. Yain lavan b'mayim, like white wine with water, they have the same appearance. The royin oiso kilu edaim. Then he will consider it like it's red. Lusagli baruba. Okay. Rava oimer b'deli shetaycho tahar. We're talking about a pail which actually only became tamei midrabanan, and it was on the inside. It was tamei. V'gabo was tahar. V'gabo tamei askinan, and on the outside was tamei. This is only a tumah derabanan. The Medina saguhu b'choldahu. Even a small amount would be fine. Rabbanahu de gazer b'hu. The Rabban made a decree. Dil machayis alayhu v'lo mavatale, because maybe you'll have compassion on it and you're not going to be mavatale. Kivan de ikari boy lot sarch. However, since the robe was on the main mikvah, so therefore you don't need it to do mavatal b'mara. Look at Rashi. Kegoin shenetam gabo b'tumas mashkin derabanan. The kamelon taichai aignai v'ozna v'yadav v'tahirin. So it's possible that only part of the kli is tummy, that part's not. The medina saglei b'chnisas mayim l'taichai koldu, even the smallest amount. She talat tvila was safasai, that even the top of the kli would work. However, where geyser, if we say that you could even just table part of it, dil machayis alayhu al mechatos. You may have concern when it comes to mechatos, is expensive. Showing this arvu me'am mikvul seichan, they're v'yivsul v'lo matbelei l'svasa kli. You may not end up immersing it at all. V'fikach gazul av hatbil l'paisloi kivan de ikariboy suot sarach. The hatvils taichel chumer ba'almahu. Okay, so those are that's basically where we're going to stop. But let's see maybe another question or two. So let's look at question 4. Talishahu moli mechatas. So you have this pail, which is tamei, it was filled with mechatas, and you immerse it. So it says ad sharubo hamayim al mei chatas, until the majority of the water is over that of the mechatas. Ketzad yashiv rava do yiksha v'shitasa diyam b'deli shishbo yain et lavan. If you have white wine, we envision it as though it's red wine, right? So, which is mara l'chumra. So he said, our Mishnah, Damasnisin, Demechatis Mari B'kli Sheteichotar B'Gavotame. There's only a Tumadu Rabbanon over there. The Sagile Bechnisas Mayim Koldu. All you need to put a little bit of water on there. Rabbanon de Gazur Shivat Kulo. Shiit Wakulo. But they made a decree that you have to immerse the entire thing, because otherwise we're concerned that you may not immersing the other one. You have chas on it. In this situation, they were lenient to mimavatul mayim sulin by a majority. Okay, let's maybe see another question. Not on TA, possibly TB. 1. Omer shlakish a pigum and Isabatam Yishabon Zebazeh the Ochlin Potter. That's it. Just asks you what are the three things, which of course we already saw. Let's see how I did. This is TB1. Okay, so let me just write this down. Ayin Chesed and Aleph. This is for a new new test. Hasurin Mavatan Zed Zeh Hadin Tamki Ikrahu Rakman Rabbanan. Hasra Safik Lo Shmei Hasra. Beautiful. Okay, we didn't do the next part. We'll see that in tomorrow's daf. Adkan.